Imagine a land of native people living freely upon the land God blessed them with, while their kids ran free and troubles were distant. Imagine a time when war plagued the streets and bomb sirens were ringing through the night sky. Now close your eyes and visualize a distant land where people were stolen and a connection to their homeland was cut off and destroyed. According to the Yale historian David Blight, he quotes, "Slaves were the single largest, by far, the biggest financial asset of property in the entire American economy." End of quote. Ty Cotis also quotes from his piece titled "The Atlantic" that in 1860, slaves as an asset were worth more than all of America's manufacturing, all of the railroads, all of the productive capacity of the United States put together. End of quote. In my speech, I will address reparations that I feel are owed to the African Americans due to their hard work for over 400 years of slavery. The impact that African Americans had on the shaping of this country has been overlooked for many years. Reparations is an issue that needs to be addressed to the African community of this time. So today, I will discuss the events that shaped our future and stained our past with the Native Americans, the European Jews, and the African Americans. So let's get into the story of the Native Americans. The Native Americans were the natural inhabitants of the country we call USA today. According to NativeAmerican.com, they were killed off by millions from the French and British during wars. Their land was stolen right from under their feet. Millions of natives died. And according to the CNN.com report, the United States of America, finalized a $3.14 billion settlement with the American Indians. Now, that's worth what they endured for hundreds of years while the Europeans came and took their land. So let's get in, now that we've talked about the natives, let's get into the Jews and what they endured. By 1941, Adolf Hitler decided to completely exterminate European Jews. World War II took the lives of many European Jews of that time. They were burned alive and thrown in gas chambers, sent to concentration camps, and suffered famine, abuse, negligence, all that prisoners of war can endure during a horrific time in our history. And according to the Institute of Historical Review, Germany has paid out more than $61.8 billion in reparations. Now, that's a lot of money for what they endured, and they were worthy of that. And they endured a lot of pain and hardship during those times. Now let's get into the African Americans and their story. The Africans were stolen over 400 years ago from Africa, their homeland. And they endured slavery for over 400 years. They created millions for major companies, steel mines, railroads, and the inventions that they created were stolen right from under their feet. They were patented in their slave owner's name, and they had no title to the rewards of their inventions. I want to get into one thing that stuck with the African Americans that they hold to this day, is that they were psychologically oppressed during their years of slavery. I have a quote from Willie Lynch, and he states, "I have a foolproof method of controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that, if installed correctly, it will control your slaves for at least 300 years. 1712 Willie Lynch letters. I also have another quote. Take the meanest and most restless nigger, strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, the female and infant nigger. Tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a different horse faced in opposite direction. Set him afire and beat the horse in front of him and the remaining niggers. The next step is to take a bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger males to the point of death in front of the female and infant. Now, this type of psychological oppression was carried on through the duration of slavery to the African Americans that still have effect to this day. Now that you have been enlightened on some of the horrific events that happened in our past to a group of innocent people such as the Native Americans and the Jewish community, we can clearly see how these group of people were awarded for their loss and hardships that they faced during these horrific times. Why not the African Americans? Have we not endured enough suffering, which still goes on to this day? We must understand that this is not a black issue. It's a moral issue that is unjust and needs special attention. I would like to end with a quote from Maya Angelou. She states, out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide. Welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind night of terror and fear, I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.